evening. You heard my bio, so I won't go too far into that. Besides saying that what was left out of there really does drive me more or less in what I do, and that's that I've had the great privilege of serving at the head of the Labor Council in San Diego. There are a number of women who choose to work, there are a number of women who have to work, and working mothers in particular serve a very special place, I think, in our society. And I remember in the last presidential campaign when we heard about single moms in particular, but this really applies to all working moms, and kind of the demonization of women who work in general. And that's classes, quite frankly, and problematic for those of us who, whether by our own desires or because we're forced into it, have to balance both being a mother and a breadwinner, basically. The nurse will call from school when we had nurses. If not, the front office attendance lady would call and say, you have to pick up your child, right? Your child is running 103-degree temperature. You feel like a failure as mom. Your child is throwing up. By the way, did you think maybe it wasn't a good idea to send them to school today? And there is no choice you have but to go pick up your child and hopefully take them to the doctor if you have health care. And that has happened to me every year of my life. Just once a year, one child ends up with some crazy sickness that I have to go pick them up from, or they can't go to school. And when I started thinking about and started talking about to women who are low-wage hourly workers, and what do you do? Regardless if you are resolute to not miss a day of work and you go to work sick and you try to protect other people from getting your sickness, but what do you do when that school calls?
Mentioned, I'm a native San Diegan. My mom was a hotel maid, my dad was a gardener. I can remember what it was to live in the city without a car. There's nothing like being about 5 or 6 years old and having to follow your mother home with huge bags of grocery, because there's no grocery store near your house, number one. Number two, you don't have a car to do that. It's very hot, it's not pleasant, and it sort of sears your mind for the life that too many people in this community seemingly concerned that these stories cannot be replicated because the cycles of poverty are so strong, almost by design. And there are a number of fronts where this is happening, the political process, the legislative process. I know is that 38% of workers in this city do not earn enough to make ends meet. What has happened is we passed a law that we are now the largest city in the United States with its own minimum wage. The largest city in the entire US. Right? I think that's tremendous, and probably the most important feature of this legislation is to the issue that brings us together tonight, is that you don't have, this is now indexed to inflation. So that starting in 2019, after the full phase-in of 1150, which is done over 3 years, then we're going to take a year off, allow them to catch their breath, and then we'll kick in. Homeless particularly are a difficult issue. I represent some of the most progressive people in the city of San Diego, but those folks become really conservative very fast when it comes to the issue of homelessness, because it's a nuisance. These are folks who are sleeping in front of their homes, who may be doing bodily functions near in front of their house, going through their trash cans. It's a nuisance. It's not pleasant. And yet we have this humongous problem. And for this group, I have to tell you, the number of women who are growing in this ranks.
Small business owner, I applaud what you've done. I own a staffing service, so I put people to work every day, many of whom live in their cars. And once we find them jobs, they can live in apartments. But I wish it could just spread not to the city of San Diego, but North County and other cities.